Definitely. So, of course, the network, community support is key. It also sounds like perseverance and determination is also a large part of what will get you through the process. But in terms of all of these efforts, and we can see that the teachers are working so hard, were you able to see or measure the impact on these students?
Yeah, when we went in to teach, I think another profound difference for me that I saw with other first-year teachers is that there is high expectations. We see in classrooms that maybe there's an expectation, a desire to get them to the next semester or to the next grade. But when you know that you have to differentiate instruction for all your students, you know that you are wanting to provide a quality education for the high achievers, those who need differentiated instruction to challenge them to grade levels of growth on the higher end, but those who are illiterate or pre-literate in your classrooms, whether it's a third grade classroom and you've had a child who's gone through and been promoted and is still 13 years old in your third grade classroom and they're that far behind, or whether it was like my classroom where it's high school students who couldn't read or could barely write their name. And so the measurable growth was to be very deliberate about aiming high and expecting that your students, like Michael said, can and will achieve at least 2 years of growth. And that is through constant assessment, through constant learning, through constant testing growth and outcomes. So for us, it's a very, both qualitative and quantitative deliberate process in how to measure student growth.
So it sounds like in order to get the impact, you really have to set the bar high and get the students to be goal-oriented. But just the same, I'm sure for both of you, you each have your own goals. So with respect to your Teach For experience, can you share what kind of skills you developed in the process?
So the Teach For network basically is a 2-year commitment. I was assigned again to teach in New York City. I loved where I was placed to teach, so I actually ended up staying at my Teach For America school for a total of 4 years. In 2005, an opportunity arose for 6 of us to actually start a school. So imagine, if you will, like somebody comes up to you and says, I want you to create a dream school. And that is what we did. We wanted to create a school where we would feel very proud to send our own children to. We wanted to create a school that, regardless of socioeconomic status, we were going to get you college and career ready. In 2005, we opened our doors to about 80 fifth graders from all over New York. And for me, kind of like a testament to the school's success and the hard work of both the students and the teachers, 2.5 weeks ago, those fifth graders just graduated from high school, and 100% of them are going to college. For me, one of the most frustrating things about being a teacher who would at the end of the year, I would say goodbye to my kids, and for all the teachers who are here, that could be a very emotional, traumatic experience, right? You say goodbye to your kids, they go off to another school, to another teacher, and sometimes you'll hear, the kids go to the next grade, and things start to fall off. And one of the reasons why we wanted to create a school is so that we will get them from grade 5 all the way to grade 12. And we just launched our elementary school. In about 3 years, KIPP will be a K through 12 program in New York.
That is great to hear.
So as far as transferable skills, Jerome, you mentioned now I'm in public policy. I've worked for Governor Martin O'Malley for more than 5 years now. And many of you have probably taken negotiations class, right? Or multi-party negotiations, conflict management. Manny and I were at the Kennedy School together. We remember our peers grueling through these classes. But I will tell you that a lot of my experience actually came from the classroom. A lot of the transferable skills that I use to negotiate in the governor's office actually came from being able to negotiate with parents. When these parents are arguing in my face and saying, why did my student get this grade, or how can my child be here, or even with the community members and trying to rally the community to be able to understand the gravity of the situation, the necessity to be partnering so that we can provide our students with an excellent education and community. A lot of those transferable skills, whether they were in team management, conflict management, multi-party negotiations, or even the ability to analyze a situation, deconstruct that situation, and apply an appropriate solution. A lot of that came from the classroom. And I think that's the power of all of the educators here in this room. You know that you're always gaining these transferable skills that we underestimate, that those experiences cannot be understated. That as a teacher, you're gaining so much more global skills than you would even imagine.
So I don't think I answered your question.
No. You did a great job of answering the question. Actually, both of you segue into something else we'll be talking about, which is life after Teach 4. So I know, Mike, you are continuing your role as a teacher. With Angela, she is with public policy. But to what extent do you think the fellowship actually shaped your career path? Do you think that these are things you would have done on your own, or was it a direct impact of being part of the Teach 4 network?
Okay. So as far as how did that experience shape? Well, the thing is that like Michael, always an educator. For me, I knew I had a call to make a significant impact in public policy. So that Teach 4 network experience for me not only gave me those transferable skills, but what I'm taking with me are those stories. And so when I didn't know I would eventually become the senior analyst for Governor O'Malley, and they would be asking on what are appropriate policy avenues that we should, what are the appropriate policies that we should employ for the state. I did not know that would actually be an education. And so for me, being able to, translate that real world, experience from being a teacher and then saying, here's what we advise as far as policy for the state of Maryland, that was very critical, that I did not even realize that would be something within my repertoire of skills that would be extremely useful. And again, I mentioned the number of transferable skills that I got as being a teacher. But I think another thing is on all levels, I understand now what it means that within the education system, and when we think about family interventions, it's a multi-pronged approach. When you think about a child, it's actually the holistic piece of the child, and being able to understand that and see that real world, and knowing the true issues of what families and children are facing, that is a huge piece and many stories that I am taking with me now, and when I continue to raise support for Teach for the Philippines.
Thank you. And of course, both of you, as part of the Teach 4 network, there were probably other Teach 4 alumni that you were working with in your schools. What have you seen from some of your other co-teachers? Have they continued with education, public policy as teachers? What other things have these teachers done after Teach 4?
The amazing thing about the Teach 4 network is, well, you teach for 2 years. It's going to be like 2 of the hardest years of your life, right? And, teaching in the inner city or in a rural environment where the school might be in, some serious trouble, that leaves such an indelible mark on your psyche that no matter what you do after your 2 years, you're always going to have that experience. So to give you an example, a really close friend of mine decided after his 2 years wanted to go to med school, so went to Stanford. He's now a doctor, but is committed to providing health services for the poor. A friend of mine graduated from law school at the University of Chicago and is committed to providing pro bono services for those who cannot afford legal services. And that's largely because of their experience in their Teach for America classroom. And that's going to happen with the Teach for the Philippines fellows here as well. It never leaves you. It doesn't.
It definitely leaves a mark. Now, if people are interested in being part of this Teach For network, Teach for the Philippines, what can they do to be part of this?
Well, so many might wonder, I have a full-time job living in the United States, but I'm here for a reason. And I think what was incredible for Michael and I is that part of our role with Teach for the Philippines in its first year was to bring a component of Filipino Americans to be teachers. So there are 53 teachers who are teaching in the Quezon City schools, and 5 are from the United States. And what's incredible is that these 5, because of the need for the bayanihan, like to come back and to raise level of support, and because of their vision to give back to the motherland, they came back to teach here in the Quezon City schools. And what's amazing is they're bringing their creativity and their innovation into these classrooms. And it's absolutely necessary that we leverage the collective power so that all are part of this movement. And the collective power is with the Philams, but it goes beyond Philams and into the entire diaspora. So for Michael and I, our roles are shifting into U.S. business development because we see a critical need for having an avenue and a place where Philams can contribute. And we, all the time when we have gone and spoken at various conferences or student groups, or even to young professional groups, there's such a thirst and desire to want to give back in a meaningful way. And we say, give back however you can. If it's to go and visit the program, if it's to volunteer, if it's financial resources, if it's for organizational resources, give. And the reason why we can say that with such strong conviction is we truly believe in the mission and the vision of Teach for the Philippines.
That is great to hear. In fact, it seems like there are so many different aspects that people could get involved in. Of course, fellowship, the teachers themselves, such as what you did with the Teach For network, development, fundraising, volunteering. Now, here's an additional question for you. With respect to your Teach For experience, how has it changed your worldview?
Just really quickly, I mean, when we launched this KIPP school, we were in New York. We were told, "Oh, it's not going to last, right?" Or, "How, your kids? You really think that all of your kids are going to go to college?" And we proved them wrong 2.5 weeks ago, right? And so, what Teach for America really did for me is that it is so important that you set the bar high. If you set the bar at this level, your students are going to perform at this level at most, right? If you set it up here, they want to attain that. They want to achieve it. And so the network, the people who are part of the fellowship are the most promising individuals in the country.
Right now in the Philippines, according to elementary reading scores, 16 to 33% of children can read proficiently. 16 to 33%. And when I think of that staggering statistic, what has changed my worldview is that we need to change the perception of teaching. When I was doing education policy in the United States, a lot of what we learned is that those who are competitive on the global scale, like Finland, believe it or not, Finland and China, in science and math, they're competitive because they revere their teachers, to a high standard as engineers and doctors, and the teaching profession is professionalized truly. And this is the great thing about Teach for the Philippines, is we're recruiting from the most promising students from all different schools, and some of our great schools, and those students know that they have other offers and consulting. But what I heard the other day from a fellow was just absolutely wonderful. They said, you know what, yeah, I was offered to do consulting, or yeah, I could have gone to law school, but you know what, that can wait. What cannot wait are the fact that our children, these third graders cannot wait to learn. And I think that is so true here in the Philippines, the United States, and abroad. We cannot wait. We have to understand that this is a dire and grave situation that really speaks to our global economy. If we want to raise in our global economy, we have to grow those students to be able to compete on a global scale. And so that's why we need excellent teachers to be able to level that playing field.
Thank you, Angela. Actually, you talked about the global economy, and I believe Mike shared something about trying to create global change. And that was something you mentioned earlier today. If you're going to do something global, there's a different starting point, correct?
You need to act locally to have a global impact. Act locally to make a global impact. For me, what that looks like in terms of education is provide the best possible education for my class of 32 students, right? And then from there, the next step up was, well, why can't it be a school? And then from there, it's act locally to make a global impact for sure.
And that makes perfect sense. We've been talking about the fellowship, both of you being Teach For Network alumni. We do have in attendance one of the Philam Fellows for Teach For the Philippines. We'd like to recognize her right now, Leslie Espinosa. She is in the audience. And as we are recognizing our audience, I'd like to turn the attention to all of you because we would like to open up the discussion for questions and answers from Mike and Angela. So feel free to raise your hand in case you have a question, and I can walk over to you to bring the microphone over. And of course, I know that they shared a lot of information, so I think a lot of people are processing the information. But maybe perhaps some of the teachers might have some questions. I know I saw a lot of hands earlier. There were a strong number of teachers in attendance. Or even grad students. Medium, oh, you have a question. Great, thank you. Yes, your name and question.
I'm Dr. Yvonne Duque, and I come from World Vision. I'm the Child Wellbeing Programming Manager, and I manage education, health, nutrition, child participation, child protection, and peace building. Dami. This is very interesting because just last week we had the Philippines Education Forum at the IIR, International Institute for Rural Reconstruction, Cavite. And that was the first time I realized we heard about a lot of good practices and lessons learned from the different teachers all over the Philippines. And one of the clamor is that we have very good teachers, but not everybody can get into good schools and universities to be able to get these initiatives that you guys had. So I don't know if there is a possibility for us to be able to get also those from remote communities. And I don't know how we can help them because they are very good teachers. Actually, I congratulate all teachers here. All teachers, because I myself come from a family of teachers, and I told my mom, I don't want to be a teacher because your salary is this big, this small. But my mom told me, teaching is a very noble job. There will be no teachers, no business people, no doctors without teachers. And through indeed every day of my life, I was already teaching. So anyway, I want to throw back to that question because I really feel for those teachers in the communities. They have a lot of issues right now in children. Number one, like for example in Sarangani, anyone from Sarangani, the issue that they had was At age 13, 14, and 15, children are still in grade 1, grade 2, and grade 3. How can you help these communities? How can you help the teachers to be better teachers, to be able to bring up all these children? I have lots of questions already.
Very good questions. I think the first one was about reaching out to different communities, different areas, and perhaps I think Mike and Angela are thinking about it. We also do have in attendance our Director of Admissions, Patricia, from Teach for the Philippines. I think she can speak about the different communities that we are reaching out to.
Thank you for your question, Paul. We started with Quezon City as a pilot year, just because we wanted to make sure the program was perfectly planned, the kinks were ironed out. But we are not Teach for Quezon City, and we are not Teach for grade 3. We're Teach for the Philippines. So with your help and with everybody in the room, the more we grow the program, the more the brand gets out there, then we become part of Teach for Holo, Teach for Sulu, Teach for Zamboanga, Teach for Benguet. But in our first year, for example, and Mike and Angela spoke more of their personal experiences, but allow me to share with you our 53 fellows. They hail from, yes, Ateneo, UP, LaSalle, but there's also some of them from Sultan Kudarat. There's also one from Bulacan State University, one from Bicol State University, one from Benguet State University. And so they come here to Manila to learn teaching in the classroom in Quezon City, and then their goal or dream is to bring it back to their provinces. So that's how we get involved and expand across the Philippines. If that helps. So help us. Help us by year 3, year 5, become Teach for the Philippines and not just Teach for Quezon City.
We have an additional question from the gentleman in blue. Your name and question, sir.
Good afternoon. My name is Sunny Reviste. I'm a product of AIM. I came from the States a couple of months ago. Came here to attend the wedding of my daughter. She's already married. I've already finished part of the campaign. I'm teaching here. I'm already on my second class. I'm going back to the United States to wrap up my stuff and come back here to teach in the Philippines. It's been a long journey, sometimes terrifying. When I say terrifying, part of the teaching I did in the United States included teaching Filipinos there how to shoot the camera properly in the middle of the night and get mugged in the process. Unfortunately, the guy who was trying to mug me was drunk, and he didn't know that I was also taught in the Philippines how to fend for myself. But that was a good experience. But I'm saying this because, first, it's really true. It's more fun in the Philippines. And it's really needed in the Philippines. When I was listening to you, Dr. Reduken, in the States, I set up a school, a one-person school, and I call it the Aguatera Institute. I had that in mind even when I was still in AIM. And the goal of that school is to teach for free in the coastal areas of the Philippines. I say that because if we really believe what we dream of, then you just have to sometimes forget everything we've learned and just do it. I have trained many fishermen and farmers through the years, through the Department of Agriculture, through the Department of Natural Resources, through LaSalle. I was teaching in De La Salle University. We built up a 34-year-old school. What do you call this? De La Salle Dipa. For 34 years, had 3 programs and 3 buildings. In the first 18 months, we put up 8 new buildings and made it the center of excellence in the region and in the country. I couldn't have done that without the training that I got from AIM. It's important we get good education for our educators. But you gotta know how to find it and you gotta fight for it. It's there, it's available. There are many, many, many opportunities. But you start off by going through that darkness, that dark hole. Even if you do not see the light, and just understand that the sun will always rise tomorrow. And there are many of us. There are many of us out here in the Philippines and in other parts of the world helping other communities. Kaya natin to. We just have to believe. If a ship worker like Walesa can become president of Poland, I'm proud to say that in my first class in BBMIT, where I was teaching for 60 pesos per hour, I now have 7 doctors come out of that school. And I'm extremely proud of that. So yes, we can influence people at any level. And when I go back, when I wrap up, it's also to teach there in the US. They need our help too.
Thank you po for your comment. Sabi nga po ni Rick Veloso, sa atin nagsisimula yung pagbabago. So thank you po so much.
All right, I'll make my way to the gentleman in the green, and then after, we also have a question from you, sir. So, your name and question, please.
Hi, my name is Ayo Camera. I just wanted to ask a question of the fact. So, I believe currently you were saying you have 53 fellows. How many schools was that? 7 schools?
Across 10 schools in Quezon City.
I just wanted to ask, let's say for next year and for the future years, what are your plans for scaling? Need for teachers, need for fellows, rather, sorry.
Sure.
And plans for moving into other areas or other regions?
Great. You actually led us to our next slide, which is who we're looking for this coming year. 60 fellows. So we targeted 50 fellows in our first year. Overwhelming number of applications. We found 53. And those are their pictures in the back. This coming year, we're looking for 60. And we'd like to stay in NCR one more year, just to get a feel for the region a little bit more, and then expand from there. I don't know if that answers your question, but it's 60 fellows.
And we have another question from the gentleman.